as I mentioned last week, Roy Furman is not only a former Brooklyn College student, but he is one of the most prolific producers in Broadway's history, and he has quite a colorful tale to tell everybody, because he was sitting in the same classrooms as all of you many, many years ago. His latest play, Nice Work If You Can Get It, was in this ad in the New York Times, which cost about $100,000 to run this ad.
A lot of watches.
That's a lot of watches. That's a lot of watches. So without any further ado, let's give it up for my friend Roy Furman.
Hello, everybody. Different dress, different demographic. You're just on time. It's nice to see you all. And I was years ago, many, many years ago, sitting here. And I will give you, are you Ted or are you Mr. Nabowitz? What are you?
Okay.
Well, Ted asked me to fill you in on how I got from where I was to where I am. And it's as convoluted as you can imagine. And the one lesson in all of this, and I spoke at the Brooklyn College graduation a few years ago, and I told all the graduates that it's very important not to get hung up about all the things you will get hung up about, all the terrible things in your life, none of which matter at all. You know, did you major in the right thing? Did you do this? Did you do this right? None of it matters. Life is very serendipitous. You will find, you will plan, unless you want to be a veterinarian or something like that, or a surgeon, that most of what you do is really just getting you ready for what you really either want to do or you find yourself falling into. And mine is the best case imaginable. I went to Brooklyn College and I majored in psychology and I minored in English, very thoughtful, because I was going into advertising. I had gone to Midwood. Anyone go to Midwood here? Hey, good for you. I went to Midwood. I was editor of the paper and I was editor of the yearbook, and I wrote well, and I thought I wrote well, and I had a sense of humor. So I said, I'll go into advertising. That's fun, and I'll be a copywriter or something like that. So what would be good? English and psych. And in my senior year, I woke up one Monday after a weekend, and I said, gee, I said, I think I should have another degree. And it will give me more background, sharpen me up, give me a better resume. I came to the conclusion that all of you may realize that Brooklyn College is not an Ivy League school, and even though the education is great, there are incredible prejudices out there in the real world about where you go to school. It's nonsense because you're the same person. I'm the same person whether I went here or somewhere else, but it matters to some degree, and I thought I should look into this. And I went to my college advisor and I said, I want to go to graduate school. Just like that, I was an idiot. And she said to me, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I haven't a clue. I want to go into advertising. And she said to me, well, there are schools like Missouri and Northwestern. I still remember this, in Columbia. And I said, I won't go to Columbia because I don't want to be in New York anymore. I've been here enough my whole life. I want to get out. And I don't want to go to Missouri, and I don't want to go to Northwestern. It's too cold, whatever. So then she said, well, what about, you know, what are you interested in? I said, well, how about the Ivy Leagues? What do they have? And she said, you want to go to divinity school? You want to go to education? This is really me sitting in there talking to her. I had given it no thought at all. It was a Monday morning. And then she said, law, how about law school? And I said, law school, that sounds interesting. I said, what do you have to do for that? She said, you have to take LSATs. And you need a timer, she said. Your kids are listening. So I said, well, what schools have law schools? And she said, well, Harvard and Yale have law schools. And I said, hey, this is good. Like, you know, hey. So anyway, that is how I ended up. It turned out that was the last week you could file for the LSATs. The last of the LSATs for the season, and the last week you could do it. So there was some karma was working. Anyway, I ended up taking the law apps, and I did reasonably well. And I got admitted to Harvard and Yale, which I had applied for. And I had no background, no knowledge, no nothing. And obviously the tests showed that I had some kind of a background or inclination for it. and I ended up going to law school. I had no interest in being a lawyer, and I still was thinking of going into advertising when I got out of school. And then I got out, and I thought my mother would kill herself. My father had died when I was young, and when he was young, and my mother was my only support, and she had paid for me to go to law school, and she would have put her head in the oven if I didn't practice, because to go to law school 3 years and not practice would be instant death in a Jewish house, instant. And so I decided I'd practice, and I took a corporate job just because I didn't want to get in the rat trap of 7 years of being an associate in law school. And I was bored to tears, and I really didn't like it. And one day a friend of mine said, you know, what are you thinking of doing? I said, I don't know, but I don't enjoy law, and I've spent enough, 2 years, I said, I spent enough time, and I was doing quite well in the business. And he said to me, well, you're good on your feet, you have a quick mind and an agile mind, why don't you go into Wall Street? And I said, well, what do you have to do? I knew nothing again, never read, never took a business course in my life. Next step, I applied to a firm to go into Wall Street, a new research firm, ended up working at that firm, quit the law, became a guy in Wall Street, and then ended up, a few years later, I ended up buying the firm with a few friends of mine, and then we built it into a very big firm over a 25-year period. And during that period, I invested in theater as I was making a bit of money, because I always loved theater. And ultimately, I ended up producing on Broadway while I was running my firm, and now I'm still with another firm, we sold our firm, etc. Long iconography, but in fact, all it really tells you is none of it matters. Nothing matters. What matters is you, and how good you are, and how comfortable you are, and how confident you are in yourself, and whether you're able to go ahead and do it. I didn't have a business course, and I became a leader in Wall Street. And I had a course that could prepare me for advertising, and I've never gone closer to advertising than I was when I was a sophomore in college. And I practiced law, and I knew nothing when I went to law school. So lesson number one for all of you is expand, grow your mind, do things. The one great lesson out of this for me was that each one of these, directions I took enabled me to learn more about myself, and more about life, and more about people, and more about business, and more about the world. And that's really what you're going to have as you go out. The guy who's doing the engineering or building studios, the person who's selling watches, creating and selling them, is all fabulous. I would love to find out where they are 5 years from now, because they will not be there. That's clear. They'll be somewhere else, and some other thing that was taking them in another direction. You're not locked in from where you come from, and the one great thing about America is that the opportunities are vast, and you just create them. And so the watch is not, it's a niche idea we heard, it's not a big idea, but it will do something and tells me something about the guy who's doing it. He'll find some bigger niche and move on from there. And my career is that. It is simply that the education was just to learn stuff. I advocate in my worlds, I advocate people go to law school primarily because law schools teach you to think. The national law schools especially, the great state schools and the Ivy schools and the Stanfords and whatever, those schools don't even teach you the law. You learn the law when you study for the bar exam, but you don't know the law. You learn how to approach a situation. And that's why law school was helpful to me, not because it taught me that if A hits B, B has to pay A or something like that. So basically, my career is one that hopefully should be some kind of a signal to you of what's out there. What have I learned in all these years? The first is it's all about you, and it's how you conduct yourself. I grew up in a world where there was no digital anything. There were no computers. There was no iPhones and iPads and emails and whatever. And even then, I was wise enough to recognize that what you say or do never leaves you. I've told people when I speak at graduate schools and other schools to students like you, and the one thing I say to them is you're always being interviewed. Every day of your life you're being interviewed. You do not realize it, you do not appreciate it, but people are making judgments about you that will kill you later on, and you'll never know why. If you and a girlfriend, and this is whether you're a guy or a girl, have a fight, and you say something nasty, somebody's going to hear it, aside from the person you said it to, and it's remembered. And you do not know how it gets back to hurt you. Praise somebody, and you will not know how that will benefit you. But everything you say and do, anywhere, everywhere, is a reflection on you. And a lot of times when you interview people, and I do a great deal of interviewing, not just interviewing Kelly O'Hara and Matthew Broderick to be in a show, because that's an interview too, but interviewing people in my investment business, interviewing people for charitable work, which I do quite a bit of in New York. What you find out when you start asking people is things that the people involved didn't remember and didn't want anyone to know. And in the world that you're living in, of the email system, where everything is known about you and everything, I was saying that to Ted when we were having a fantastic lunch at Starbucks before, what is amazing is do something wrong and it never leaves your record. It is a part of you forever. In fact, the firm that I ran, which was the name was Furman Sells, my partner and I were diametrically opposite people, and yet we each had mutual respect for our ability, and we worked together for 25 years. Went out once socially in 25 years because we had nothing really in common, but we did have respect for our talents. But if you have a problem with your partner, be careful of taking the leap in. And if you start a company, whether you hire a back office person, a CFO, and anybody, always know who the people are and whether they're quality people. I would take quality over talent in a strange way. I take high quality people ahead of people who may be smarter than others, because people of low quality are going to hurt you. And I'll give you one instance of what happened. And when we started our firm, we only had 6 principals at Furman Sells when we began the business in 1973, when all of you were not even a thought. But when we began the firm, we couldn't hire anybody good, and because of my real strongly held conviction that it's not worth hiring anybody unless they were good and quality and whatever, we weren't going to hire anybody. We just rough until we got bigger and better and whatever. Finally, one day, after 2 years, one of the great traders in Wall Street came to us and said, I love you guys, I love what you're doing, and I would love to join you. And this was a bad guy, brilliant in business, brilliant, and one of the great traders in Wall Street, as I said, and we were overwhelmed and so flattered that this guy chose us, literally, to come to, and he said, I'll be your 7th partner, I'll be this, I'll be that. And we jumped up and ran around and said, wow, this is a real coup for us. And that was the moment of crisis for Furman Sells, and we never knew it. We were a tiny little firm in a small little office on Wall Street, buried somewhere. And we were about to finish it. We did the due diligence. We knew he was not a nice guy, but we knew he was a great producer. And when we came to the board, which was us, to make the decision, I remember saying in that meeting, I hate this guy. I hate him, but we should hire him, right? And everyone looked around and said, I hate him also. I hate him. And it came out that none of us liked him. And then we said, hey, we're 6 guys sitting in a room, guys and girls. Why do we want a 7th person who's not nice? Why do we care? He may be the best trader in Wall Street, or one of them. Who cares? And so we dropped him. He was waiting outside to be brought in. I mean, you can imagine that was a very lovely day. But we said to him, sorry, you're out. And we never told him he's a bad guy. Rule number 1, if you remember. But we just said we changed our mind. We decided not to go that route, whatever it may be. But that ultimately led to this attitude of hire only people you like. Hire people you like. And as I say, they don't have to be like you, but people that you can live with, because entrepreneurs live in a very cloistered way. You don't work at General Motors, you don't work at IBM, you work in a tiny little cubicle with a couple of other guys in cubicles or gals in cubicles, and if you don't like each other, or if you, worse than that, if you dislike each other, it's awful to know you're coming to work every day in that environment. A lot of you probably will find this anyway when you join a regular firm. If you find that you're with 6 people every day and you don't like 2 of them, you will not stay at the firm for long, you will leave. But if you're an entrepreneur building a business, find out what matters to you. Now to me, it mattered greatly. To you, it may not. You may want to have hired killers in the firm, and you may want to have terrible, evil people because they produce. You will not have a great firm, but you will have a functioning firm for a little while till it goes out of control. But think of that. What matters to you? To me, nothing mattered more than having quality people. Quality people can compensate for intelligence. They can compensate for a lot of stuff. There's something lovely about coming to work every day and having people who like you. Even in this room, just as an example, I'm very struck by how you respond to everything I've been saying, funny or silly or whatever. It's wonderful because most classes you go to, when you speak to people, they're all like, they're so out of it that you're talking and there's nothing coming back to you. But that's sort of a microcosm, in a way, of what I'm really talking about in the real world. It's delightful if you're up here saying something and you have a feeling that people are actually listening to what you're saying. Whether they agree with you or not doesn't matter. But that's what the business world is like. And if you're going to start a very small company, make sure you're reasonably happy about coming to work every day, which begins that way. Anyway, do you have some time?
Sure.
I'm going to read you. Always follow through on what you promise. If somebody says to you, call me back by Thursday, and that's whether it's a date, I will get back to you by Thursday, I'll call you, we'll set something up. Or your friends are going out and you all say, Thursday I'll get together, we'll get it done, whatever it may be. Or in the business world where it really matters, and you say to somebody, we'll get back, we'll discuss it internally, we'll get back to you Tuesday. Or I'll have a bid for you on Wednesday, or a proposal on Thursday, whatever it is, you must be responsive to what you say. It's a wonderful trait. Now, you may say, what if I'm not ready? Then there's nothing better than calling the person and saying to them, hi, it's Roy Furman here, and we told you we'd get back to you Tuesday morning, and here it is Tuesday morning, and we don't have anything ready for you. But I want you to know we're thinking about it, we're thinking of you, we're working on it, we promised you we'd call you, we're calling you. And it's not the answer you wanted to hear, but the difference is if 1 hour later that man or woman calls you and says, where's your proposal, where's your this, where's your that, and then you start doing the old it's the same answer you would have given before. We're not ready, we talked about it, but it looks like you really didn't do anything about it. Whereas if you're proactive and you made the call, what I call in the world that I live in, make the first call. Get there before that person has a chance to call you. So, and even in the dating world, same thing. You say to the gal, I'm gonna, we'll make a date, I'll call you middle of the week, whatever it is. Make the call, even if you're not sure whether you can, will, or whatever, but at least you show her that you care. Some socializing in the middle of all this. Yes, I sent a gift to a friend of mine who was in a hospital, and it was a book. And I sent him a note saying, this is a new thing called a book. I said, it's a little heavier than the Kindle you use, but you may find it interesting to turn the pages in it, and you may enjoy it. What it really bespeaks is that the world we're living in today is all electronic, and there is no substitute for in-your-face conversation and reaction. Nothing is better. You can send emails from today to tomorrow. One walk across the hall, one pickup of a phone that says, hi, I'm here, rather than the email, means a great deal in the business world. Most people have forgotten this, and it's going to get harder and harder because the emails have just enveloped everything. But the personal contact, the old world way of doing it, is always the better way if you can. Now, you can't visit everybody and do everything, but that is good. I have a note here that says, say little at meetings, accept small things, and people will remember. We had a big business pitch yesterday, and as I walked out, I said to my partner from the firm, I'm now vice chairman of another investment firm, and I said, I was stunned that not one of our people spoke. Not one of them. They let me and you carry the whole conversation for an hour and a half. And he said, well, that's the way they're taught, whatever it is. My attitude is, you should never leave a meeting where somebody doesn't remember you're there. And what often happens in the business world, especially when you guys are starting out, that's not to say that you're going to make some famous declaration or drive the conversation, but whenever you have a chance to make a point, even one smart point made in an hour-and-a-half meeting means somebody on the other side is going to say, I don't know who that gal was over there, but she was smart. They will remember you were there, you will have an impact, and you will be a little bit emboldened. But try to think, I do that consciously, by the way, in meetings, and I'm at a stage in my professional career where I don't have to do it anymore. But I consciously, when I'm bored or I have nothing really to add to a conversation going on between the business sides, where I'll try to think of a question to ask or something to say that will let them know that at least I am involved in what's going on, rather than being totally detached. Involving yourself matters. In the same way, one other piece of advice for you is as you grow, this may be a tad ahead, but when you go to meetings, even now, I don't know what goes on in the cafeterias here, but what tends to happen is whenever you get together with people, all of you who know each other stick together. So if you go to a function of a kind, a dance, whatever it may be, are there dances still anymore now? Does anybody go to dances? But in any event, a mosh pit. But when you go where you congregate, the tendency is the kids who know each other and spend all of their lives together, the 8 of them, the clique, whatever they may be, they're always gravitating to each other. The 6 people here who are always together, the guys who are always drinking beer together, they're always here. The guys who watch the Knick games are here, and basically no one ever intermingles. At Jeffries, the company I'm at now, it got so bad that when we used to have firm functions for high-powered young people, I mean high-powered, very successful, and lots of them, we hire 150 people a year at our firm from school, we used to force, we were so frustrated, the traders would all go over there, the bankers would go over here, the back office people would go there. No one ever, we would bring them together to meet, and they would meet each other. The same people they sat with for the whole day, they'd walk in the room and say, I don't know anybody here, I don't know anybody here, get a real panic attack, and then say, ooh, there's the guy I sit next to. So I'll go over to him and spend my day or the meeting, but you do the same thing. You may laugh at it, but it's exactly what you do. You look for the people you know, unless you're looking for a pickup, but other than that, you look for them as you know, and you spend time with them. So what I advocate, and it's fabulous, all of you are going to be the leaders of tomorrow, scary as that may seem. You will be. And the people you meet along the way will be the people who will also be leaders. You're going to be graduates of a school, and you're going to meet a lot of other graduates, but the fact is, one of you is going to be chairman of General Motors. One of you is going to be running an ad agency. One of you is going to be in a modeling thing, whatever it may be. Spend as much time as possible to meet the other people. Get to the other side of the room. Walk over. It's challenging, it's difficult, it's a beast. But in the business world especially, when you go to a meeting, I never stayed with the firm that I came with. I walked over to the lawyers and the accountants on the other side, and I was a kid. I was in my young 20s, and I would say to them, hi, Roy Furman, just to say hello. I'm with Furman Sales, or I'm with whatever it was at the time. But, you know, who are you? And whatever. And to the degree you can go to lunch with them, to the degree you can get to know them. In the business world, that is how you build your Rolodex, build your resume, build whatever, is by going out of your way. And in the world you're in now, it's also a very good idea. Don't just stay with the same people all the time. To the degree you can, be open to other relationships or whatever.
That could be a good segue, actually. Because I guess 2 years ago I met Roy for the first time, and did not know him at all, but I did sit at his table at a Brooklyn College function. And right away, me and Roy seemed to have hit it off, the Brooklyn College, the fact that I came back to give back to the school. So what did Roy do? Unknowing to anybody, my wife was there, my son was there, he made me an offer to come into one of his plays that he did, just so graciously that not everybody has the chance to invest in a show like the Book of Mormon. So I am forever, let's hear it for the Book of Mormon. So I'm forever indebted for Roy Furman, somebody who I knew just as a passing conversation, called me up the next day after we met. We met up in his office. He took it upon himself to get involved, and certainly I did as well by going and following up. And now I'm in quite a few of Roy's plays, and as I said, his newest play, Nice Work If You Can Get It, is going to be opening up on March 29th.
Get your tickets.
The next play I'm involved with Roy is the show Evita, which is coming back to Broadway back in May. So I'm going to open the floor up for questions for anybody. We only have a few minutes, so okay.
Evita's with Ricky Martin, by the way, for those of you who care, and he is incredible. Just to mention that. Shoot.
Roy, quick question. You ever read The Alchemist?
The what?
The
Alchemist, yes.
Paulo Coelho, right?
Yeah.
Phenomenal book. You pretty much put the nail on the coffin when you were stating that in life it's not what you are, not what you plan to do, but it's what you are doing that will land you into what you were meant to do. So, with that said, what do you recommend for somebody that's in the corporate life and so on, or any of the students here that's an entrepreneurial kind of spirit, but does not want to get stuck in that boring, routine, get out of the cage type of thing?
It's hard. I have to know who you are and something about you, but basically stay away from big companies. Try and look for smaller companies to the degree you can in the business you're interested in, and even if not, if you hear an opportunity, go for it. The one thing I do tell people is your age, you have 50 productive years ahead of you, which may be scary or positive, but that's really what you have now. You have 50 years ahead of you. When I was growing up, you didn't, because guys like me died when they were 51 years old. The life expectancy has changed. Everything is why women get married so much later now. Everything is changing in life. There's a much greater span to what you have. So you can screw around for 10 years and it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. So gamble. I can't tell you where to go, but take advantage of opportunities. Be open to things. Listen. Read a lot. See what's out there. Can't tell you where and when, but clearly there are industries that make some sense today. Technology, healthcare, which you know will be exploding for the next 50 years. But just make yourself accessible. And the other thing is, if you want to leave, leave. Know that your resume shouldn't have a job a year. I always find that a tick against people who come to me if I see 2008 to 9, 9 to 10, 10 to 11. So you don't want to just go in and go out, go in and go out. But you have the flexibility to quit and to move on and look ahead. And by the way, never quit a job unless you have another one. Rule number one, never leave a job. You can always get a job when you're employed, but you have a much harder time when you're unemployed. So even if you hate it and it's drudgery, never in a moment of peak quit a job and say, I can't take you anymore, and I'm leaving and I can't stand it. Get a job while you're working. Then you can get a job.
Okay, next question.
Yeah, you quickly spoke about marketing in the beginning, but it's apparent that that's how you've led your life, that you are marketing yourself as A, B, and C. I just want to get your comment on that.
It is true. It's all about you. It's all about who you are. And you want to show your best side. And the qualities you have matter. And for me, it was sort of easier, I think, in retrospect, as I look back on my life, because I am a good person. It's subjective, but I am a good person. I am a kind, nice person. And so it's easier to project that because it's real. You can't project who you aren't. And I have a college education and a law school education, which helps. Second degrees help. You don't have to have them at all, by the way, not at all, but it's nice to have them if you can. But you are always marketing yourself. You're always selling yourself. That's what you did up here. Always selling yourself. And that's what it's all about, and you're always being judged. This interview thing, keep it in your mind.
Right, we have time for one last question. Somebody back there? Well, okay, go ahead, Max.
Well, when you guys started out with the small Wall Street firm, how did you guys fund the operation?
We began with, it's funny to look back on it now, we funded the whole firm with $500,000, which came from the 6 of us. And I put literally, the investment I made was rounded off to the penny. Whatever money we had, my wife, pretty smart woman, said, you do it, go for it, because you'll never have a chance again. So we squeezed together and scraped together from all of us, all the money we made in our careers and whatever, to do $500,000. And brilliant financial people that we were, we had totally forgotten that the first day you had to pay double rent, double utilities, double everything. We never figured it out. We had almost no money by the end of the first week. We were hanging by a thread. We had nothing. So a bad wind would have knocked out the whole 25-year history of Furman Cells. But the answer is we scraped it together. We didn't go to outsiders, and that's another thing for you to know, last thing, before the professor yells at me. When you're doing anything in the business world, especially when you're small, be very wary about giving away pieces of your company to save you money. One of the big bugaboos in the business world. Because when you don't have a business that matters, and when you have no earnings and you have no nothing, it's easier to give your lawyer 3% of the company because, hey, not costing me anything. 3% of your company may cost you more than you ever wanted to dream about. Or as you may have noticed, that the Facebook people paid the guy who painted the murals on their walls. Anybody read that story? Yeah. So they gave him stock in Facebook instead of paying him to paint the mural. And that stock today is worth, anyone want to guess?
120 or something like that?
Go a little higher.
No, it's half a million.
It's $200 to $300 million in stock. The guy who painted the mural on the wall in their office, because Facebook said, "Hey, why give him some money?" And so anyway, be very wary of giving away 0.5% to your accountant and 1% to your lawyer and 2% to your banker. I mean, you may have to if you have nothing, but try to finance your company as tightly as you can and keeping as much as you can. The wonder of Facebook, if you look at it carefully, is Mark Zuckerberg, through all the funding and through everything, never gave up control of his business. Pretty astounding. The guy is really good. Anyway, I thank you all for listening.
Thank you.